Hello everyone and welcome to the Constructive Criticism Network. This network is here to help you improve at Magic the Gathering at every level. From Pauper Leagues to Top 1000 Mythic, we've got you covered. If you want to hear the entire network, head on over to our sponsor at PureMTGO.com, where you can hear each and every show, each and every week, and check out their sponsor, MTGO Traders, and tell them that the CCMTG network sent you. Now sit back, enjoy the show. From YouTube, podcasts, and more, here's this week's episode from ConstructiveCriticism.com.
Hello everyone and welcome to the 338th episode. 8th episode? 8th episode? It's probably 8th, that's the way you say it. Come on, Mason, you can do this. Episode of Constructive Criticism. I'm here with my imposter co-host, Allison Warfield. I'm Mason Clark, your imposter co-host, Allison Warfield. I'm Mason Clark, your crewmate host.
That's pretty sus. I don't know. Mason's acting very suspicious.
Oh god, the pressure's getting to me. I screwed up the intro. I just vote me out of the airlock. I'm an imposter. I tried my best.
Oh my god, you never admit you're an imposter though. You could be caught in the act and be thrown off the ship and you're like, yep, it wasn't me, and then it says Mason Clark was an imposter.
Yeah, the new rule of no telling makes this a lot better, but yeah. I had someone saw me stab somebody in front of them and they said Mason did it, and I said, what are you talking about? I'm on the other side of the map, and I said where I was, and luckily no one was there and they didn't kill me. It was the lucky
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was wild. Yeah, if you don't understand what we're talking about, the game Among Us has been sweeping the nation. It's like a mafia style game, and Allie and I have been playing it a bunch recently. It was wild. Yeah, if you don't understand what we're talking about, the game Among Us has been sweeping the nation. It's like a mafia style game, and Allie and I have been playing it a bunch recently. So it's really fun. That might be a fun little Patreon thing to do, Allie, is an Among Us game. That might be
that'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to look into that as a little reward. But yes, today we're actually going to cover the historic format. We had two big tournaments this past weekend going online, and there's the Mythic Invitational next weekend. And with Standard being kind of at a low right now, and we haven't played much Modern, this felt like a really good time to do an episode covering this sort of topic. And honestly, Historic's been really fun recently since the unbannings, in my opinion. But we'll kind of get more into that, I guess, as the show goes on later. But Allie, first part of the show, of course, is always improving. Gotta be working on something. So Allison, I'm gonna throw it to you. How did you improve this week?
I've been wanting to grow my YouTube channel as well as just me streaming and stuff. So I talked to some people and realized that I could just upload my VODs in some shorter segments based on when I'm playing a deck. And yeah, I don't know if that specifically helps me improve magic-wise, but having that time allocation I think is definitely the thing that helps me the most this last week in any terms of Magic.
Yeah, no, I think that sort of thing is reasonable. Also, tackling a problem, right? How am I going to grow this YouTube channel when I'm already streaming full time, and then doing all this other stuff? It can be hard, right? It's a big juggle, but figuring out that problem solving, I think, is pretty reasonable. So also
yeah.
If you want to extrapolate a little more, look how helpful it was to go and talk to people, right? Out that problem solving, I think, is pretty reasonable. So also
yeah.
If you want to extrapolate a little more, look how helpful it was to go and talk to people, right? You said you talked to some other people and that it was helpful or whatever. Same thing happens in Magic. How often have you messaged a friend and been I don't know what to play this weekend, or this format's so weird right now, and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely just look to people who are more knowledgeable than you in a certain area. Jeff Hoagland obviously has the content creation thing in lock, and he gave me a couple suggestions. I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That sounds good, and I've been doing it, and I obviously haven't seen growth overnight, but it's just a way to constantly keep putting out content for those on YouTube, so it's not just a week before you get anything from me anymore. Yeah,
YouTube's hyper important. It's crazy. We play the qualifier, and I just put aside my biases, and I was I think Modern Red's probably pretty good. It's gonna be kind of quick, a quicker game, so I can really grind this out if I need to, and just found a list of mono red, changed a couple cards, then boop, got my way up to 400-ish in camp for the last 2 days, which don't like camping, hate that as part of the game, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really frustrating because it's like, oh, I want to play historic, but I can't play historic because like I could play the side events, I guess, but like I don't know.
Yeah, because you don't want to like mess up your rank.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just incentivized to like not play for 2 days. So like I wanted to play and a friend like kind of wanted to test. I was like, ooh, screen share, let me live vicariously. Like let me watch. But yeah, so that was mine. Just played some mono red alley, beep beep. Speaking of YouTube channels, put it up the deck tech on my YouTube channel. Even had my stupid little thumbnail. I like making the little thumbnail. I like making the little thumbnails, by the way. You did a really good job on yours of making like a cool like Bolas's Citadel and Priest of Forgotten Gods and putting your face in there. I just like putting my face on a magic card. Like Deem Worthy this time was the one I did, like the one where Hazoret's stabbing them. And like my face is all like reacty and I don't know. Either way.
Yeah, for like my actual videos, I definitely put time in the thumbnails, and then for just like the VODs I upload, Streamlabs has a beta thumbnail creator that I've just been using to make like okay things because it's just a VOD. I don't want to put in like an hour's work into the thumbnail.
Sure, that's fair. Well, awesome. This is Great Always Improvements. If you want to support the show, you can go to our sponsor, Oasis Games. If you go to Oasis Games, you can use code Would That Be Good to get 4% off every order. Use code CCMTG to get 15% off your first order. Oasis Games. If you go to Oasis Games, you can use code Would That Be Good to get 4% off every order. Use code CCMTG to get 15% off your first order. Pick up some cards. Maybe you can pick up Croxa, Allie. It's all over the place. You know Croxa's only $15? Wasn't it like...
I love Croxa.
It's so strong, right? Like, I think it's unfair of Croxa to be compared to Uro a bunch, and I get why it happens, but like
they're opposites.
Yeah, they're opposites. Yeah. I don't know. It's just wild to me how good Croxa is and how like low key it's under the radar. It's like if you had twins and one twin went to like Juilliard to be like a pianist or whatever, like they just like they did their life goal, right? Like they completely crushed it. And the other one went to a slightly less prestigious school and did the exact same thing, and everyone just talked about Uro. And it's like Croxa's right there. Croxa's living their best life.
Yeah. I think maybe it's just like overall. Yeah.
Also, in the head-to-head, Croxa fuels Uro, which is frustrating. Frustrating to play against. It's like, oh, let me discard your Uro. Oh, no, let me discard cards.
No. Yeah. I mean, that might be a reason why like Croxa isn't super like fantastic right now. I still think she's great, or he, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Croxa.
Croxa is Croxa in my mind.
Yeah. But yeah, and then you just face down so many Uros, the Schlorpy boy, and then it just comes back.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, well, if you want to go to Oasis Games, I guess you could buy Uro if you wanted to. But you could definitely buy Croxa.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
don't buy Uro.
At least don't buy it from another store. You should definitely buy it from Oasis Games. This is the sponsor part, Allie. This is where we sponsor this people.
Well, yeah, but buy Croxa.
That's true. Buy it from another store. You should definitely buy it from Oasis Games. This is the sponsor part, Allie. This is where we sponsor this people.
Well, yeah, but buy Croxa.
That's true. So what if you bought both?
Put it in the same deck.
Yeah. And then if you use the code CCMTG with your first order, and then you also use Would That Be Good, you get all that money back. Then you pick up all these Titans. I hear Dylan's getting excited about it right now. It's a great time to be a listener of CC. Do you know what's another reason it's a great time, Allie? Is you can also support the show by going to patreon.com/CCMTG. You get to ask questions like this one. With the pandemic going on, what's another way y'all have been enjoying yourself in your free time? So, Allie, what have you been doing in your free time? They don't always have to be Magic questions.
I've been doing a lot. I found a lot of things that I enjoy doing that I just never had time to in college, I suppose. I've been reading, I've been cooking and baking, I've been playing Dota.
Well, powwowy time. If you don't want to hear it, deal with it. Skip ahead. Patrons get to ask questions. Kind of similar. I've been just doing
and Among Us.
And Among Us, yeah. Yeah. It was funny. I was like, I know I was doing Among Us. We already dedicated a whole sketch to it. But yeah, lots of Among Us. I logged another 8 hours yesterday from our conversation, by the way, about time played. Yeah. I played a lot of Among Us. Among Us, lots of, like, watching TV shows. So, like, I've been watching Food Wars. I've been watching, like, I caught up on Attack on Titan, watched Hannibal.
I am also watching Attack on Titan.
Have you caught up with what's aired?
No, I'm on season 3 right now. I just got in there, so still have that. And then I'm hoping that it gets released in October. Like, was planning on it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I am curious because of the pandemic if, like, it will be delayed.
That it gets released in October. Like, was planning on it, but I don't know.
The pandemic, if, like, it will be delayed. I know a lot of shows originally were, but I wonder if they've, like, adjusted enough now that, like, maybe it'll just be, like, stretched out and not delayed, if that makes sense. Like, because some shows, when stuff like this happens, they take a week off between episodes. So, like, it will last a little longer, where they take a couple weeks off. So it's, like, delayed, but not, like, you have to wait 6 months delayed, you know? So I'd much rather have that than not have anything. But yeah, I thought the second season was kind of and I thought the third season was some of the best I've ever seen and made watching the first 2 seasons worth it. So it's really super cool. And besides that, I've been just engaging with stuff and then trying to do things with my time. Just like before I had this foot problem, then I'm actually soaking in super hot salt water as we talk right now, and it really hurts. Before this, I was trying to, like, go for jogs and walk every day and just try to, like, do stuff like that. And then been trying to work on, like, the content creation stuff between, like, this and YouTube and I think I can't talk about yet. And so, yeah, I've just been trying to stay busy and do a bunch of stuff. And I miss going to the tournaments, Allie. Do you miss going to the stuff, though? I'll say that.
Yeah, I do. I think I mean, there's an aspect of paper tournaments that I do like, but I think for the most part, it's just traveling and seeing my friends that I miss.
Sure, yeah, that's fair. Nothing like the Valley Forge Casino. I love traveling there. It's like Mecca.
Hate it.
Okay, no doubt.
No one will give me the Wi-Fi either, so I just, like, literally miss rounds because I don't hear the announcement.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah. I don't know. The last time I was at Valley Forge Casino was, like, the infamous Dom posting, like, 40 minutes over, you know, the round time or whatever. So it's hard to really miss Valley Forge Casino. That's always my take on it. 40 minutes over round as I fly in to Philadelphia, such a cool city, and then Uber 30 minutes to the Valley Forge, where dreams are real. What a time to be alive. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. Hopefully you enjoyed that question, and thank you for being a patron of the show and get to ask questions just like that. And then maybe we can get on the top of this Among Us thing, see if that's doable. I think we could do that. That's something patrons want. So I'll post a question about that there, and that's like a cool little thing we can do to give back and be a fun time. All right, Allie, let's get into our main topic for this week's episode, though. We're just talking about historic. We're going to kind of go over some tournament results and just kind of talk about the format. Do you want to start with the MTG Arena Zone Historic Open?
Yeah, we can look at this one. These opens have been getting more and more popular, which I think is awesome. I use a lot of my streaming decks from MTG Zone, so yeah, it's just kind of cool that they're running tournaments and they're being pretty successful. This was a 134 person tournament. Looks like our top 8 is not, like, that diverse, I don't think. There was 3 Rakdos mid-range decks, 2 Goblins, Burn, Bant Spirits, and then Simic Ramp 1.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting, especially once you'll see, like, the other thing, to see the difference in deck representation here. But Rakdos mid-range was, like, very popular in the top 8 of this event, and then it doesn't really appear too much outside of the top 8 all the way down to, like, the top 32. So it's kind of interesting to see it, like, kind of rise up. And Rakdos midrange was the deck I was, like, really high on at the beginning of the format last week. It's up and, like, can pick apart. But I feel like, and tell me what you think about this, there's been a real shift to like mid-range pile decks for the most part, you know? Like the Bant and the Uro decks have really last week or so. I feel like the Rakdos deck suffers against those decks, but we don't see a whole lot of those decks here, so it's kind of not surprising to see Rakdos midrange succeed in that sort of metagame.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's like in this last week, people remembered that Uro is one of the most broken things you can do in almost every format. And we see that in, I guess, the other tournament that we're going to discuss. But yeah, the overall kind of lack of Uro in this tournament, at least on this like first page of results, we're looking at like people who had a winning rate or whatever.
Yeah, like
what's that called? Winning percentage.
Their win percentage is high. I'm a little. Also worth mentioning, the person who won, Vomi, they went 10-0. So it was 7 rounds cut to top 8, and they 7-0'd, 3-0'd. Their record here is they went 10-0. So it was 7 rounds cut to top 8, and they 7-0'd, 3-0'd. Their record here is 10-0, undefeated, cannot be stopped. I think it's interesting. I'm looking at this deck too, and it reminds me a lot of like something that like was trying to get a little bit popular at the start of Historic when Field of the Dead left, and then kind of got dropped and came to conversation. And so I think a lot of people weren't prepared for this kind of strategy, but it really is just kind of like a hard like, hey, I'm gonna play Ugin like pretty early, and I have a bunch of like cultivates, explorers, growth spirals, like those sort of things, Oracle and Moldai, Hydrocrisis to like move through my deck, and I'm gonna slam Ugins and Nissas and that sort of thing to take over the game. It's pretty.
Yeah, it definitely looks like the deck I first made it to Mythic with in Historic forever ago, and and yeah, I kind of just like never tried it again after that point because there was just always something else to do. But yeah, I mean, playing Ugin and Ulamog and whatever, pretty powerful.
That's true. Yeah, I think the power of like just playing Ugin on like turn 5 or 6 is like pretty good as long as you don't die. And Uro does a pretty good job of preventing you from dying, I feel like. And I feel like this deck has like 3 Arboreal Grazers, like it has 4 Hydrid Krasis, it has like Oracle as a way to get extra land drops, like it has Nissa who shakes the world to make blockers. So I think this deck's really good at like bridging to Ugin. And I think most of the format just can't beat Ugin, right? Like I'm trying to think of a deck that realistically goes over the top of the turn that you do it, because Ugin will minus, unless you had a Citadel before, you somehow didn't kill them, and then Ugin minus, because then I guess it would have not enough loyalty. But yeah, I think this is I think this makes a lot of sense for being like a strong deck. I think it's linear, and it'll be hard for a deck like this to stay as the top deck from week to week, but I totally see how this like dominated the event.
Yeah, it feels like, I don't know, maybe what is there a way to see what this person played against? I don't think so.
There used to be on Goldfish. Yes, there is. So I can actually tell you right here. Here's the tournament path. Round 1, they played Gen Sacrifice. Round 2, they played Gen Sacrifice. Round 3 and 4, they played Sultai Midrange. Round 5, Mono Green. Round 6, Rakdos Midrange. 7, Mono Red Burn. Then in top 8, they played against the 2 of the Rakdos Midrange players and Mono Red Burn. So I feel like all of those matchups are good, probably outside of Mono Green Aggro and Mono Red Burn. All of those matchups are good, probably outside of Mono Green Aggro and Mono Red Burn, just because they're so fast. But I bet if Mono Green has a stumble draw on you, Ugin, they can't win. And then if you get to like Hydrid Krasis instead of Ugin against Burn, they probably can't win. Because the Burn player, I don't even think was playing Frenzy, if I remember correctly. Yeah, they were playing Flame of Keld.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that all makes sense. I mean...
Oh, actually, they played the same Burn player twice. Sorry to interrupt you there. I just looked at the names.
No, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think I don't know. It's weird because I don't want to make it sound like you played this deck because you think people are going to play fair decks, right? Like, and then they played against a bunch of fair decks, and they were rewarded for it. I think that's cool. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's like why you would play this style of deck.
Yeah, I think people keep playing different Uro decks too, and if this just like can ramp out faster.
Yeah. Looking at the top 16, by the way, Allie, in 9th place was Mana Blue Tempo. That feels like a deck that if it had made it into the top 8, Vomi, our champion here, would have a terrible time playing against. Just like, only Ugin matters, don't worry, I got it covered. Like, interesting. Yeah, I'm looking at some of these decks. Historic's pretty diverse, and it's interesting to see just how sometimes the format becomes so linear at moments, and then other times it becomes so diverse and like the like mid-range decks and answers that people play. You know what I mean? It seems to like shift. I want to say like bi-daily. It is really wild.
Yeah.
Is there anything else in this top 8 you want to talk about before we switch over to the other one? I guess I kind of want to talk about goblins because I don't like goblins, and goblins keeps like doing okay-ish, but I think it's like bad. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
okay-ish, but I think it's like bad. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I've never been like super impressed with goblins. Like, sure, you can do your like thing, and that's like powerful, and maybe like too powerful because you can just like flip cards with Muxus and win, but I don't know, it feels like any amount of interaction just ends it.
Yeah, I big agree with that. I feel like the comparison I try to normally give is like you're playing Affinity, but it's like you're like 2018 Affinity, and you're playing its 2020 Magic deck. So like, yeah, you can just like cheese people game 1. You can like Arcbound Ravager them, you can Muxus them. Like those cards play out very similarly in my head. And I think the way the games play out, well, not exactly the same. Like they draw those sort of cards and they win the game with a lot of pieces, plays out similarly, and they just both really have a hard time with the interaction. And then post board, because of Grafdigger's Cage's relevance, like they have to they win the game with a lot of pieces, plays out similarly, and they just both really have a hard time with the interaction. And then post board, because of Grafdigger's Cage's relevance, like they have to bring in things like Goblin Trashmaster, Goblin Crater Maker, Braids, things like that every single time, because their best card by a mile is just colded by them, and then the Cage is so good against this deck and so many others that they're like forced to play like these weird cards to answer it. And if they don't have Cage, they have these weird cards that don't line up well. And if they do have Cage and they don't find the Goblin or the the Abrade or whatever it is, the one they decide to play with that weekend, then they also just get like low-key colded. Like you're not. I promise you, playing Lexus as a 6 mana 4/4 that gets bigger is not good. Like, yeah, it is not what it's about, Chief. So,
how did this mono blue player not make top 8?
I was also looking at that. They have more points than both 7th and 8th place. Yeah, maybe this is an MTG Melee mistake. I guess we can look at their name though, and we can see their match history. Yeah, they only played 7 rounds. Yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah, I don't...
Did they like win and then drop? Is that even a thing you can do?
Maybe it is, yeah. Maybe they report 1 and then drop from event. Because maybe they thought they weren't going to make it, or maybe they had something come up IRL. But yeah, you're right. Like, looking at it...
That's so weird.
Yeah, I think they would have won the event. Like the Rakdos deck is a little bit of a problem, and there were 3 of them in top 8, but like we know for sure one of them played against like the ramp player. So I don't know. It feels like this deck is super well positioned right now. Like as long as people are playing linear stuff.
I guess they would have had to play Burn in the first round. They probably would have lost there.
Oh, positioned right now. Like as long as people are playing linear stuff.
I guess they would have had to play Burn in the first round. They probably would have lost there.
Oh, damn.
I don't know what happened here. Like, this is really weird to me.
Yeah. Also, by the way, their sideboard is super aware they can't be burned. As soon as you said that, I looked at their board. They have 4 Cerulean Drake, 2 Aether Gust. They're not about it. That is some dedication. I love Cerulean Drake. I think it's sweet. By the way, I just want to give a big shout out to MTG Melee. They added a deck list feature now, like the one that we're using. That this was here before, but it was not this detailed. It was not this clean, and did not have your tournament path as easily. Like it was not as presentable. They also have like a whole deck list tab now, And I think this is like my go-to place now for historic decks because Goldfish does not update. Like, because they don't have that
I've
many
been
tournaments.
using Melee forever. It's great.
Yeah, big props to Melee. Well,
Like good in theory because I have enjoyed these kind of decks before, but I just don't think it has enough.
Yeah, it really needs Spell Queller, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It needs Spell Queller or something like that. And I think Brazen Borrower does an okay job of like, huzzah, I have a flash threat to like punish you. But it is not as punishing as Spell Queller. And nor do you have like the insane hits that like even like your Collected Company into Spell Queller was like a real line. And then there's that Wild and Modern where it was super creature dominant and they played Reflector Mage.
Yeah, just like, I don't know, having to play like some of these cards, like they're all like fine cards, but there's just so many like better spirits in older formats.
Yeah. And I just feel, I don't know. It just feels like I liked this deck back when it was actually like, in theory, I should say, I liked it against Field of the Dead, where it was just like blue-white, and you had like Lofty Denials. Plan was play flyers to fly over zombies and counter the big spell that matters. And as a Collected Company deck, it does not impress me a whole lot. And the player, to give them full credit, are trying to make their Collected Companies really good. Like, post-board, they have Nimble Obstructionist as the way to, like, have something that's pretty good to hit and, like, hold up your mana. You have a play. You have Knight of Autumn. They have Deputy Detention as, like, their Reflector Mage type card. They have Sunscourge Champion, which is ETB, you gain life equal to its power, and then it has Embalm. I'm sorry, Internalize, misspoke. So they're trying, but I just feel like it's a little lackluster, and like Kira the Great Glass Spinner is a powerful Magic card if there's a bunch of spot removal, but I feel like there's a bunch of sweepers outside of the Rakdos deck. I feel like this card's insane against Rakdos, but I don't know. That's a pretty Also, they lost to Rakdos in the top 8. That's pretty funny. Seems like it'd be a hard matchup. If you don't have Kira.
Yeah, sounds about right.
All right, let's go over to the Arena Super Cup where the homie took it down. Caroline Kavanaugh, Mono Black, God Pharaoh's Gift.
Woo! I love Caroline.
Big same. And you love to see this sort of thing win. Have you looked at this deck before?
I played against Eric Hawkins on ladder with this deck, and I had some gross draws and beat him, but I didn't. I like the Fiend Artisan tech. That was cool.
Yeah.
Bring back a Fiend Artisan, and it's suddenly like an 11/11 because it starts as a 4/4.
Yeah, those were powerful. Yeah, I think this deck is. So this was also a 7-round tournament, by the way, and I think this deck is like interesting. It has like a very unfair game plan and unfair draws, and like Gate to the Afterlife, Stitcher Supplier, early draws. Like that's like probably unbeatable for most decks. And then it also has this fair game plan of like my deck has a Cavalier of Knights that can grind you out, and some Chupacabras, and I got Massacre Worm, and I can like Priest of the Forgotten's Woe Strider you if that's the kind of thing that matters. And I have all these like weird black sideboard cards I can bring in, and creatures like Brain Magnet and Plague Mayor, and it just seems like a cool mid-range deck with a combo backup plan.
Yeah. I'm always like so skeptical on God Pharaoh's Gift decks because I feel like I try a different one every week and it just doesn't work for me. I don't know why.
Are you praising the Pharaoh twice a day, every day?
I'll work on that.
So this is funny. I actually had this conversation with someone else, but this is an interaction between you and me, but it's like Twitch chat, where I'm of the opinion that most decks that are fair decks, if you put God Pharaoh's Gift into play, you have won the game. And I know that you have not won the game, that like the game must continue, but I do feel like if you're playing against a lot of fair decks, if they cannot exile the God Pharaoh's Gift, you will just kill them in time. Just like a 4/4 every turn is unbeatable. And so I call it winning the game when you put a God Pharaoh's Gift into play against an unfair deck. And it's funny, listeners, because Allie thought that there was a combo kill that she missed when she was streaming when I sent her deck list. I was like, nah, you just got a 4/4. That's the combo attack. It's a combat step. It's 4 damage and their life total. That's my combo. But
I also had a lot of bees.
You did? Oh, that's right. I forgot you were playing the Hornet Queen one. Yeah. The bees are very helpful. Yeah. Yeah, I wonder. That is one thing I will say is that this deck really leans into like the Fiend Artisan coming back off God Pharaoh's Gift and the belief that a 4/4 every turn is enough to win the game. I think in current historic, getting early God Pharaoh's activations or early gift activations, sorry, is enough to win the game. But maybe if the format becomes more unfair, you can play things like Hornet Queen to make this a Golgari deck. But I think this is kind of like a cool position for the deck. I was not super high on this deck before, but I think it's hard to argue with someone as strong as Caroline, A, bringing the deck, and B, the result it had, and other players as well, like, saying like this deck is good. And I think it's like I think at worst, it's totally reasonable and is probably a good deck. Like, if that makes sense, Yeah,
that makes sense.
Also, this deck gets to play 4 Thoughtseize on the board, which makes its combo matchup way better than other things. And it's a graveyard deck that gets to play Grafdigger's Cage, because Grafdigger's Cage doesn't work against God Pharaoh's Gift. And I think that's actually super relevant.
Don't tell them. I had so many people bringing Grafdigger's Cage against me when I was playing these kind of decks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Unfortunately, the Simic one, it still like was kind of good at some points because of like Emery and stuff. But
yeah, it's interesting. It's funny you mentioned that. I was just thinking how it does have a little dissynergy with Fiend Artisan and Woe Strider's abilities. But I guess like if the Grafdigger's Cage is good, it's just like lol, who cares? Like you probably only bring it in against decks where you really want it. So yeah,
and I mean, in the end of the day, the Fiend Artisan is just gonna be a huge attacker anyway. So.
That's true. Can we also talk one more thing that we kind of missed? One of the like historic only cards in Crypt Breaker. It got added in the first anthology, has seen almost 0 play, but it seems like a great addition to this deck. Like draw to get cards against the Pharaoh decks, discard things to get closer to your God Pharaoh's Gift while like holding the ground down against it. Probably a pretty big player for this deck, and I think just wanted to mention that before we moved on. I don't know. I feel like that card's strong.
Yeah.
I also, for people that are interested, since we did talk about the other tournament winner, and we love Caroline, so we want to shout her out. Caroline played against Rakdos Goblins, Sultai Mid, Mono Red Goblins, Double Bank Control, Sultai Mid, Rakdos Goblins. Dang. In my head, I was thinking, I wonder if Goblins is a bad matchup, but Caroline just keeps beating it. Mono Blue Tempo in the top 8, then Gruul Aggro, and then Rakdos Goblins in the finals. She played Eric Hawkins twice, so I think is actually a teammate of hers on Team Sagoya, I think is how you say it, or Swagoi. I am unsure of the exact pronunciation, but yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Yeah, I wonder. I in my head, I was even thinking like before I looked at this, because I glanced, but I didn't like look. Caroline only lost. Oh wait, Caroline went undefeated against all these decks. Now that I'm looking at it, that's funny. I thought she lost one of these. Yeah, I thought Goblins would be a bad matchup, but I guess I'm just super wrong. I guess you just interact a little bit along the way with all your creatures incidentally, and then you have Massacre Worm if they ever build a big board and they die. Now that I talk out loud, I realize that I sound silly. All right, Caroline's great. Next deck. So in the top 8, like the other decks, there was Rakdos Goblins, which we just talked about, obviously. Sultai Mid, Gruul Aggro, Mono Red Aggro, another Goblins, Mono Blue Tempo, and another mid-range deck. I think we should probably talk about Sultai Mid because I think this is one of the better decks in Historic. We saw Autumn Burchett really play this deck, and it got a list floating around on Twitter, and Sam Black wrote a whole article about how you should be playing Pact Negation more, and Uro was one of the shells and Sultai that was talked about there, and it just was completely gone from our last tournament, and it has 2 in the top 8 here. What do you think about the Sultai mid-range decks?
I don't know. I've never been super impressed with them, I'd say. I'm going to try some out today. The Pact of Negation thing is interesting. Impressed with them, I'd say. I'm going to try some out today. The Pact of Negation thing is interesting. I don't know. I get Pact of Negation. You can play like Nissa and then hold up Pact and it ends the game, but
yeah, for what it's worth, these 2 players did not choose to play Pact of Negation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try and play a Pact of Negation deck today on stream, but yeah, I don't really know.
Yeah, on the topic of Pact of Negation, I think that card is good in Historic, especially for your tap out deck. I actually played the M2GA Zone tournament, and I was gonna play Rector's mid-range, but I had the idea of playing like a blue-white tap out deck that played Getting of the Trials plus Pact of Negation, so that you could like play Gideon, you emblem, and then you can pack whatever you want for the rest of the game. And you can like still develop your dream trawlers and stuff like that. And then the format was like, the last time I played that format, it was like the MTGA zone. They were pretty aggro heavy, so I thought having Gideon fast in fairer formats. I hear a lot of people say like maybe we're supposed to play Pact a bunch in the past and a bunch of decks, but I think you can only really play that card because this format is a little bit slower and you do get to develop your mana. But I do think Pact's a strong card. Like, it's cool. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess like maybe not enough people have kind of thought about it yet, still, even with a couple of deck lists and articles out, but I am interested in seeing if like anyone's gonna play Gideon with Pact, because that seems kind of cool.
I did, Allie. It was me.
I know. Well, you said you didn't do well.
Yeah, because I'm big dumb.
Ooh, that's unfortunate.
Why wasn't I blessed with being handsome and super smart? I'm just super handsome. It's my cross to bear. But yeah, I think that's it. It was surprisingly good. Like I would like especially I think that's it. It was surprisingly good. Like I would like especially if I was on the play. Like in my deck, mind you, was like a tap out deck, so I didn't have like my only counterspells were Pact and Censors, and so like I would slam Gideon, and then I would like 0 and to make my emblem, and then sometimes my opponents would like be a ramp deck and they like tried to slam a Nissa, or like they tried to slam like their Gate to the Afterlife as a Godbearer's Gift deck, and I was just like packed you. Like 3 and 4, I think those are pretty big turns in Historic for like developing, and like if you're a ramp deck, those are also around the time you're starting to put a Nissa in play. I think having something that like lets you interact on that sort of way while getting on the board is super important. So, also you can ECD back your Gideon of the Trials Alley, and then you get to actually have to choose a mode because +1/+1 counter works well with Gideon.
Oh my god!
we had that happen on stream, and I was like, we were up a bunch. We're like, chat, what do we do? Do we +1/+1? Are we getting a loyalty? I don't know. So I was a coward for the record. Block Warriors. But yeah, sorry. I guess we're getting off the topic of Sultai. I think Sultai is pretty good. I think it really matters like the kind of decks you're playing, because like it's like a lot of chunkier creatures and like floods the board with Coco or something like that. You know, like having Wrath of God is a lot better than having these like various spot removal spells and extinction event. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like also in the head to head, you get like ECD and Teferi, which are really, really strong. Like I'm looking at Luca Martel's list that they got. It looks like they, got top 16 here, and their deck is like 4 Teferi, 2 Narset, 4 Uro, some Shark Typhoon, Elspeth Conquers Death, Escanta, Wrath of God, counter spells, just like Absorb, Censor, Aether Gust, Mystical Dispute all in the main deck, Girth Spiral, lands. Like their deck is like almost a control deck in a weird way. And then post board, they have things like Elder Gargaroth and commence the end game and all these other like weird ways they can pivot the game. So I don't know, it's kind of wild. This deck is really like a control deck, right? Things like Elder Gargaroth and commence the end game and all these other like weird ways they can pivot the game. So I don't know, it's kind of wild. This deck is really like a control deck, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I think Oliver 2 was also streaming a deck like this the other day, so there's definitely some talk about this. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on the control decks in Historic? What's Pioneer? I don't know that format. I do not know her.
I've been liking blue-white control, but I think a lot of them have just like pivoted to Bant to play Uro, and I don't have much experience with that, but I imagine it can't be that bad.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So I want to talk about one last thing before we kind of wrap up here. So I guess before I ask this, because I think this is a pretty big question, do you have anything you want to talk about in this top 16-ish? Anything that calls out to you?
Are you going to talk about...
And Historic? And I was like, maybe, I don't know, like you can go like Elf into Steel Leaf. Like there might be something there. Let's play some. And I found a deck list and they had no Gem Razors Alley. And I cut cards for Gem Razors in my Collected Company deck. I cut these Great Hinges. Like, I do not need the Great Hinge. I need Gem Razor. And Gem Razor was great. I blew up their cards. I love Gem Razor. God, that card's good. No, I was going to talk about the Sacrifice deck. So, like, going into the last week, I talked a lot about how I think Citadel is the strongest thing you can be doing in Historic, and I do think Citadel or maybe Ugin gets that title as well as like the ultimate in-game cards, right? Like maybe those two are how I should frame it. As like if you get to those cards and they stick in play, it is very hard for your opponent to win. But we've seen the adoption of like a lot of Grafdigger Cage. Like I was looking at the sideboards and basically every deck we talked about today played 3 to 4 Grafdigger's Cage. So people are hyper aware of this deck, right? And it seems like it's kind of not been trying to adapt to the card. Grafdigger's Cage, and I wonder if this deck is supposed to be like a fair deck with the combo part of Citadel. Does that make sense? So you like if you play like Mayhem Devil, Cat Oven, Citadel, Trail of Crumbs type stuff, maybe like or maybe Corvald. The format's a little too fast for Corvald, but like it feels like no one's trying to adapt this deck, which is really weird because the Jund colors are really deep.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel as though just playing a Cage, I get people are playing 4 Cage, but I have not had an issue with Cage so much. It's like most hurtful, I guess, in like blue-white control when they like board wipe you and then play Cage or something.
Mm-hmm.
But like against everything else playing Cage, it just seems like, all right, I'll either turn creatures sideways or I'll play my Rex Sage or something.
Mm-hmm.
But like against everything else playing Cage, it just seems like, all right, I'll either turn creatures sideways or I'll play my Rex Sage.
Yeah,
and then win.
That's true. I feel like what Cage really does is it forces them to bring in those cards like we talked about before, which makes your draw a little clunkier. And sometimes you do just get got with like Citadel and companies in hand, but I don't know, when I was playing, I was trimming some of those cards a little bit in the matchups where I expected Cage, which was most of them. Were you also doing that, Allie?
Coco's for sure. Yeah. And then, honestly, like, I am fine just, like, cutting Coco in a lot of those matchups because you're siding in, like, some non-creatures as well anyway.
Yeah. That's true.
Trimming Coco first and then maybe, like, 1 Citadel or 2.
I gotta say, I don't love the plan of Gigantha in our sideboard as a companion once we've side out the Bolas to Citadel.
You know, like, fade that, because it seems like you're just taking out a spell that literally wins the game in place of blanking a couple cards, I guess. Whereas, like, if... I like the plan against more, like, aggressive decks, too, because you're siding out Citadel anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I don't, Allie, am I crazy? I just feel like if you build your deck less all in on elves and you don't have Collecting Company and you just try to play a fair-ish game plan, can any of those control decks actually beat Cat Oven?
Grafdigger's Cage.
Sure. Yeah, I guess they bring it in still. I don't know. I would like to see people try to at least... I would like to see people try to adapt the Jund deck. How about that? Because I feel like I'm with people, like, yes, this, like, shell that we have here is strong, right? Like, bunch of elves, Mayhem Devil, Citadel, Company, Claim the Firstborn, lands. Like, that's a good, like, package, but it's so linear, and it's so, like, do you have it where you don't? Where do I have my one outer where I don't, you know? And I feel like you don't have to be this all in. Like, even just trimming some of this stuff, even if you don't go the Cat Oven route, I feel like is just have more versatile cards, I think could be super beneficial. I don't know. This deck's also just super bad to, like, Wrath of God and stuff like that. And if you play Cat Oven Trail, that is not a problem. So.
Yeah, Trail's interesting.
Yeah. Maybe you sideboard the Trails. Maybe that's the trick. You, like, Cat Oven with, like, a Trail or something like that, and then you play a bunch of elves. You can't play Collecting Company in this build. You have, like, a Trail main deck, and then post-board you can, like, turn into, you know, a real grindy deck if you need to, but you're still fast for the game once. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I still just, like, don't even think that, like, alone...
But you're still fast for the game once. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I still just, like, don't even think that, like, alone you can just, like, beat the deck with a Grafdigger's Cage. I don't think it works like that. I think, again, just, like, struggle against, like, blue-white control and Bant because they do that plus a Wrath of God.
Yeah. But, yeah,
but like, alone, like, if I'm playing against, like, Sultai and they play that, I'm like, alright, I'm gonna turn creatures sideways.
That's fair,
or, like,
Yeah, I just feel like the mid-range decks are really popping up. And that is, like, I guess I should be better at, like, describing my whole thought process. Because I'm with you. Like, I think you can beat a Cage cold with no fast clock or no disruption. But the problem in my mind is it's like, they play Cage, you play all these elves, you're like, okay, we need to get to our Vraska or our Rex Sage or our Thrashing Bronzodon, you know? And then, like, they wipe the decks like that. Like, let's even just talk about Caroline's deck as an example of, like, a deck that, in theory, wouldn't play out that way, but it kind of does. Caroline has a bunch of incidental spot removal. She has Massacre Worm, which will end your life as that deck. And she plays Grafdigger's Cage. So she, like, interacts with you the whole time. Has this, like, weird combo because it also kills you, but also just, like, has protection. I don't know. It is, it's interesting. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure that that's good, but my gut says something like that would be strong. I just want to see someone else try it. Maybe I just have to do it. Maybe I need to be the change I want to see in Historic Alley. But I don't know.
I believe in you.
Thanks. Do you believe in Gem Razor?
I don't know about that one.
No doubt for sure. Do you think Gruul Aggro played Gem Razor as I click on it in top 8? It did not play Gem Razor. I'm off. I don't even want to talk about the deck. Although it does play 4 Earthshaker Kinros, which is cool. But that's going to do it, I think, for this week's episode. Allie, if you click on it in top 8, it did not play Gem Razor. I'm off. I don't even want to talk about the deck. Although it does play 4 Earthshaker Kinros, which is cool. But that's going to do it, I think, for this week's episode. Allie, if you had to play, I guess you're in the Mythic Invitational thing coming up here soon, right? So
yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't answer this question. Feel free to plead the fifth. I'm going to play, if it was me, Burn, Frenzy style, maybe Mono Black Godfarer's Gift. I got to try that out. I want to try out Citadel with a B plan. I think those are like my 3 that I'm looking at. And then Gem Razor always. But just assume every time we're talking about a deck going forward that I would play Gem Razor. Allie, that's it. We played Gem Razor in our Citadel deck, and we mutate it to blow up the cage, and it also goes to Pound Town sometimes. What do you think?
Oh my god. I think you need to go back to bed.
I would love that. How about this? Answer me this question, because you're about to stream, right? You're about to start grinding towards Mythic. If you were going to play a deck on ladder, what would you play to help out the homies trying to get to Mythic? Because I think my answers are the same.
Yeah, I probably still want to like try out Citadel and see where that's at right now. Trying out Sultai as well. So I think anything we really talked about can be fine.
Yep. Yeah, I think the format at the current moment, it's pretty like we're still trying to narrow things down. So it's going to be exciting to kind of see where they narrow it down on.
I'd probably not play Goblins because I still think it's overrated, but...
Yeah, Goblins is not very good. That's my... Like, Goblins wishes they could have a B plan like Citadel could. Like, it really does, but it just doesn't. Like, putting a bunch of Goblins in play is technically a plan, but, like, not really. Like, think about all the spot removal and clear, like, board clears we talked about.
There's so many board wipes.
Yeah, it's a hard time to beat Goblins. Anyways, to play Frenzy, blow them in the face, have a good day. Removal and clear, like, board clears we talked about.
There's so many board wipes.
Yeah, it's a hard time to beat Goblins. Anyways, to play Frenzy, blow them in the face, have a good day, or Gem Razor them. 2 plans that board wipes cannot beat. Gem Razor and Experimental Frenzy. If you want to find us, you can go to twitter.com at Mason E. Clark for myself. And Allie, where can they find you?
Twitter at Mythic Meebo or twitch.tv/Mythic_Meebo.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for hanging out with us this week, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Constructed Criticism.